How does Journey follow up a killer, massive diamond album like Escape? By taking on new frontiers. Welcome back to Pixel Positive Music. This is part 8 of our 14-part series covering the history of the band Journey, one album at a time. If you haven't yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button below so that you don't miss out on any of the new content that we've got. We're going to be reviewing the rest of the Journey albums, and then on July 8th, I will have a review ready to go for Freedom, Journey's newest album. I think that as a band, at the height of their commercial fame and at the height of their success, I imagine that Journey in 1981, 82, 83, when they were working on Frontiers, the follow-up to Escape, I imagine that they probably had a hard time figuring out how they were going to climb that mountain. I mean, Escape was such a monumental album. Don't Stop Believing was just a cultural phenomenon. Even back then when it first came out, I mean, it was such a huge hit for the band. And so was Open Arms and Stone in Love and Who's Crying Now. I mean, the band was just riding high. They were doing so well. So how do you follow up such an amazing album like that? Well, you put out another amazing album. Frontiers is the perfect companion piece and successor to Escape. I think that's why the band recently, a few years ago, actually recorded a live album where they played both albums live in their entirety back to back. I think they realized that this band is, this album rather, is just a perfect companion piece to Escape. So the album opens with Separate Ways, Worlds Apart, which is one of Journey's best songs. It's one of their most famous songs. I mean, you know Separate Ways. It starts with that epic synth intro. It's a nice rocker. It has a great chorus that we all know and we all sing along with, and an epic guitar solo in the middle. And then after the guitar solo, you get some bombastic, intense drumming from Steve Smith. I mean, this track is it's a perfect album opener, like so many other Journey album openers. This band really knows how to set up an album and open it with a killer track. They've done it time and time again. We've talked about it. Any Way You Want It, Don't Stop Believing, and now this. I mean, they always tend to open with such a great, killer track, and they do it again here. So Separate Ways is how our album starts, and for me, it sets the tone of this album. I've always viewed Frontiers as having more of a sci-fi tone to it. And I know one of the tracks that is kind of associated with this album was on the Tron soundtrack, so it kind of makes sense. But I think it's also maybe that cover that with that alien or robot that's on the cover. It has a nice sci-fi look to it. So for me, this album has always felt more mystical, more sci-fi like. So the lineup on this album is the same as Escape. We have Steve Perry on vocals, Neil Schon on guitars as always, Jonathan Cain on keys, Ross Valerie on bass, and Steve Smith on drums. Now this is the last album with the quote-unquote Escape lineup until 1996 when they did Trial by Fire, because on the next album, as you'll see in the next episode, we had some lineup changes. So which is really isn't it crazy that the band is so well known for this lineup and this music, and they really only did 3 albums total together. It's kind of bizarre when you actually think about it. So we have, after Separate Ways, we have Cinder My Love, which I think is, I list that as one of the notable tracks, because Cinder My Love it's a stunning ballad. It has a similar theme to the more famous ballad from this album, Faithfully. It's about being away from a lover and it has a longing, like the narrator in the song is just longing to reach the person that they miss, and they can't reach them, so they're doing everything they can to send their love, but they can't. It's just not the same. So Cinder My Love is one of the singles on this album as well. So on singles, we've got Separate Ways, we've got Faithfully, After the Fall, and Send Her My Love. So this album, I think, has several notable tracks because it's just that good. It's just like Escape. It's such a strong effort from the band that it has a lot of notable tracks. So Separate Ways, of course, we already talked about that. We already talked about Cinder My Love. Chain Reaction is an awesome, slower rocking track with the band. It has excellent back and forth vocals from the band singing at a lower register and then Perry singing at his classic high register vocals. And when I listen to this track, which I love Chain Reaction, I've listened to this song countless times, but going through these albums in order, I kind of listened to this one differently because I thought, wow, this song would be really good with Greg Raleigh in the band. Because Greg Raleigh could have taken that lower part and we would have had a wonderful contrast, which, you know, like I said, the song's good as is. It's just something I kind of thought about. The performance of this track at Budokan in 1983 is phenomenal. It's definitely worth checking out if you have a chance. And then we had After the Fall, which was one of the singles. It's a bit of a slower track. Not really sure what it's about, but it also feels like it's kind of about a relationship and about longing for a better time in the relationship, with the song taking kind of place after the fall of the relationship. Also, I don't know how true this is, but I read online that this was actually the first track to feature future bassist Randy Jackson. So, yeah, I'm not 100% sure if that is true, but if that is true, that is very, very interesting that Randy Jackson was involved in the band at this early stage, compared to when he would actually fully join the band 3 years later with Raised on Radio. And then, of course, we have Faithfully. Faithfully is one of the band's biggest hits. It's so well known. And we all know what this song is about because Jonathan Cain talks about it at basically every concert. But this track was written solely by Jonathan Cain, and it is about being away from your family and from your lover, your wife, while you're on tour. And the song absolutely knocks it out of the park at that message with the lyrics, and it really paints a picture of life on the road. But I think this song works so well because you can use it in any context. I mean, it just works well in any context of a relationship. And we typically, in a live show, we typically get it after a bit of a little piano solo and story from Jonathan Cain. Another notable track, and I think one of their more underrated songs that the casual fans may not be familiar with, Edge of the Blade. It's a very hard rocking song for the band. I think it's one of their hardest and probably their darkest song. It's very guitar driven with overarching synths. A lot of these tracks, almost all these tracks, involve heavy synth work from Jonathan Cain, which is a nice contrast to his more piano-based work in Escape, I think. But Edge of the Blade is angry. It's full of so much rage, and it's so intense. It's one of their best tracks. The guitar solo is amazing. The vocals at the end of the song especially are so powerful from Steve Perry. I mean, I don't know if they wrote the song about a specific person or what, but seems like they probably did. This is actually, the tone of this song actually reminds me of a Queen song. I'm a huge fan of Queen. Queen is my favorite band of all time. And on their 1975 album, A Night at the Opera, which is their most famous, it's the one that has Bohemian Rhapsody on it, that album opened with a song called Death on Two Legs, which was they wrote at the time. They wrote about their former management, and it does not sound like Edge of the Blade at all in terms of music, but lyrically, it reminds me of it. They kind of have that same really hard, like dark edge on the lyrics that make you feel like there's something personal going on here. So I'm gonna have to do some research on Edge of the Blade and see if I can dig into it a little bit and see what that one's about. And then two tracks that actually were not on the album that I have listed here as notable tracks. Only the Young. It's a big hit from the band. It did not come out until 1985 as a single. There's actually a really special story attached to this song. The first person to hear it was a terminally ill 16-year-old who was a major fan of the band. After the band found out that he was such a huge fan and that he was very ill, they actually traveled to meet this kid, this teenager, and they gave him a Walkman, a Sony Walkman with the track on it, and he was able to listen to it before he passed away the next day. And he passed away holding that Walkman. I think it's just it's such a touching story, and I know it touched the guys. Jonathan Cain and Steve Perry both have talked about this story before, and it just it goes to show how good these guys are. I mean, even despite all the things that would happen later when they would break up and Steve Perry would leave and everything else that has happened between the band, these are still genuinely good people. And for me, I can enjoy music so much more when I know that the people behind it are good people. So I think it's incredible. It's a tragic story, but in the Raised on Radio tour, which was the tour that would follow Frontiers, the Frontiers tour, they actually opened with Only the Young as a dedication to this teenager. So I think it's pretty cool. And the song has pretty much always stayed in the set since. It's a pretty popular song. It's a good song, has a good message. And then the final track that I have listed as a notable track for Frontiers, which again was not on the album, but was released it was released later and is associated with the album because it was recorded for it, was Ask the Lonely. Ask the Lonely is very synth forward, whereas Edge of the Blade is very guitar led. Ask the Lonely is very synth led. You hear it immediately. It's quick. It's frenetic. It carries the song, and we do get great guitar work and everything like we always do. But we also get a really awesome like closing piano run and almost like a piano solo from Jonathan Cain that just fits so well. And you really see the duality of Jonathan Cain as a keyboard player in this song. He's really killing it on the synths, and then he breaks into awesome piano work and then ends it with synths again. I mean, for me, that I love seeing stuff like that, especially from keyboard players. Because you got some keyboard players who are really good pianists, and you have some keyboard players who are really good at playing synths, synthesizers. But Jonathan Cain proves with this track that he is really good at both. So while I absolutely loved Greg Raleigh and I love his time in the band, tracks like this really prove that Jonathan Cain was the perfect choice to replace Greg Raleigh. And this song was also featured on the soundtrack of a 1983 movie called Two of a Kind. So in recent years, they typically always play Ask the Lonely. It's a very good track live. It's very fun. If you haven't seen them play Ask the Lonely live, I definitely recommend that you look up a video of them doing so. So that's Frontiers. I mean, there's a lot of other tracks that are really good that I didn't even talk about, like the title track, Rubicon. It's a great album. Frontiers is one of their best albums. It's definitely one of their best, and I would rank it very, very high on their in their catalog. And for me personally, now this is just a personal opinion, I think it's better than Escape. It's definitely not as big as Escape in terms of what it achieved, and I mean, Separate Ways is a huge track, and that song definitely has a huge surge of popularity right now because of Stranger Things. But I think Frontiers is a bit better than Escape for me. And it's probably just because I just enjoy the songs a bit more. I love that this is more synthesizer driven in a lot of aspects. I love synthesizers. I love that there is sort of even if it's not actually a sci-fi theme, it just kind of feels that way. I love that. I love the different melodies and different sounds that we get from this album. So for me, this is definitely an improvement over Escape, which I don't even know how that's possible, but evidently it is. So, I mean, I want to know what you guys think about Frontiers, album number 8. It came out in 1983. Almost 40 years ago. Let me know what you guys think about Frontiers. Were you around when it came out? I mean, what was it like being a fan if you were around when it came out and you were a fan of this music back then? What was it like being a fan and then releasing this album after Escape? I mean, how did you feel about it back then? How do you feel about it now? And if you're younger like me, I just want to know what you think about this music. So definitely leave a comment. Definitely hit the like button if you like the video. Definitely subscribe if you want to, so you can stay up to date with all the new content that I'm working on. I am working really hard on getting this Journey series done in time for Freedom. I'm going to have a Freedom review, hopefully ready to go on July 8th, the day that album comes out. And then after that, I might do some bonus episodes on Journey before we look at some other bands. I'm thinking probably Styx next, but I haven't really locked it in. And of course, I'm working on improving my my mic quality, my video quality. I'm still very new at this whole YouTube thing, so I also, I'm just doing this as a hobby right now because I work, go to school, have a kid, all that stuff. So, um, but I am working on improving the quality of these videos as well as I get more comfortable with doing this kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm open to any feedback that you guys might have. And as always, I will see you guys at the next video.